Here's how a certain book starts. 7 years ago, every human on Earth received the same notification: you are living in a simulation. Suicides, cults, blanket denial, those parts people know. What almost nobody talks about is this. The beings who sent that message are still here. They walk among tourists, eat ice cream, and wait to see if we're worth keeping. And a dying engineer who just lost his best friend to bad system design is the only person whose opinion they still care about. JP Laurent joined the cross-country bus tour of physics-breaking impossible structures because his friend Dolan refused to let him sit at home waiting for the brain tumor to finish the job. By the time the tour reaches the Utah desert, Dolan is already dead, shot by accident in a parking lot standoff, the bullet coming from a gun whose chamber a terrified boy forgot to clear. JP is furious, not at the boy, not at the federal agents, at the architects of reality. Bad design, he thinks, sloppy work. Then 4 elderly passengers, the Octos, a coven of groundhogging grandmothers who've been on the bus since day one, approach him near an ice cream cart outside Ghost City. They apologize for hiding who they are. They wanted to see the tour from the inside. They've been arguing about whether to delete the simulation and start again, and along the way they've developed favorites. They ask JP to finish a joke Dolan never got to tell, and then they tell him something stranger. His answer actually carries weight. Daryl Gregory's When We Were Real was shortlisted for the 2025 Philip K. Dick Award, and it earns that recognition not by asking whether reality is real, but by asking what you owe the people inside it once you know it isn't. The simulators are not gods. They're bored, fallible, trapped in their own relocation, and genuinely unsure whether suffering is a bug that needs fixing or a feature worth preserving. Gregory follows 19 passengers across a fractured America in a third-person narration that leaves the question hanging. But the engine of it is JP, a retired robotics engineer, who named his tumor Brian, a man who watched his best friend bleed out and is still holding one last choice. Pick up the book, and you'll find yourself in the same position as the simulators, anxious, invested, waiting to hear what the engineer decides.
Episode 1. The tour departs. The bus climbs onto the upper level of the George Washington Bridge, green and bulbous, its long black mirrors drooping in front, like caterpillar antennae. Canterbury Trails is written across the side in white script. It's rumbling west through light April rain, hemmed in by smaller vehicles. Behind it, the sun has climbed over Washington Heights, scattering light through the droplets until every surface gleams. JP Laurent sits in a window seat near the front, an Irish wool cap pulled low. The cap hides a scalp made bare by radiation. He gazes through the tinted glass at the vertical wires of the bridge scrolling past like hop strings. A tour folder rests on his lap. He's already skimmed the itinerary, the maps, the safety warnings, the bio pages for the Avatar Shogatzing, the Impossibles, the Frozen Tornado, the Hollow Flock, the Tunnel, the Zipper. He's here because his best friend, Gillian Masch, a .com IC book writer, bought tickets and refused to let him say no. Gillian slides into the seat beside him, a paper cup of coffee in each hand. You're not going to believe this, but the bathroom on this thing is cleaner than my apartment. That's not saying much, JP says. It's saying I need a new apartment. Gillian hands him a cup. You're supposed to be looking at the view. We're on an adventure. The simulators want you to feel something. JP looks out at the gray river. I feel tired. That's the tumor talking. Tell Brian to shut up. JP named his astrocytoma Brian years ago, after the first surgery. Brian came back, then came back again. JP is on Dilanting and Temoda now, and every morning the words, "You are living in a simulation," appear over his head in iridescent soap bubble letters, and every morning he has to decide whether to boot up for another day. At the front of the bus, a young woman stands gripping the PA microphone. A binder hangs from a cord around her neck. She's 26, maybe 27, and she looks like someone who was promised she'd be shadowing an experienced guide, and instead was told, hours before departure, that the original guide had a personal issue, and she would be taking the tour alone. Her name is Anita Channa. She dropped out of a violation physics graduate program 2 years ago, and has been drifting ever since, fighting what the DSM-6 calls simulation anxiety. She presses the button on the microphone. Nothing happens. She presses it again. A shriek of feedback cuts through the bus. "Sorry," she says. "I'm sorry. Welcome to Canterbury Trails. I'm your tour guide, Anita." The passengers stare at her. There are about 30 of them, spread across the seats. Near the back, 4 elderly passengers sit together, 2 couples in their 80s, dressed in matching windbreakers. The other passengers call them the Octos, short for octogenarians. They've been on this tour before. They whisper to each other and smile. A few rows ahead, a pregnant young woman in expensive athleisure wear holds her phone at arm's length, filming herself. Lisa Marie Montello, known online as Lady 75,000 followers, and a brand built on the promise that she will give birth at the Zipper, in front of the avatar himself. Across the aisle, a man in a waistband holster shifts in his seat. Jim Mullins. He runs a podcast called The Realist Agenda, and he's here to prove that every impossible is a government hoax. His son, Christopher, sits beside him, face pressed to the window, trying to become invisible. Behind them, 2 nuns. Sister Janet, a calm woman in her 50s. Beside her sits a younger Dominican with a traditional habit, a novice who hasn't taken her temporary vows. She watches Sister Janet more than she watches the window. A rabbi boards behind the nuns, Rabbi Zev Landsman, who received a letter from Sister Janet inviting him on this trip and has spent every minute since wondering why. She barely smiled when they met this morning. Anita flips through her binder. We'll be arriving at the frozen tornado in approximately 40 minutes. It's one of the 7 impossibles in North America. And she reads directly from the page. It's a logarithmic spiral of what scientists call stuff, an ultra-dense material that isn't made of atoms. Please stay behind the barriers. Please do not attempt to touch the structure. The podcaster raises his hand. Yes, Anita says. I have a question. Why do you keep calling them impossibles? That's not a scientific term. It's marketing. If something exists, it's possible. Therefore, it's not impossible. The word is meaningless. The Austrian honeymooners, Josef and Marcus, turn in their seats. They've been arguing good-naturedly since announcement day 7 years ago, and this tour is the latest chapter in a running debate that has consumed their marriage. Joseph wears glasses. Marcus does not. He's doing it again, Marcus says. The realist. I'm not a realist, the podcaster says. I'm a rationalist. There's a difference. Is there? Joseph asks. How fascinating. Tell us. Anita grips her binder. This is not in the script. Nothing has been in the script since the moment she stepped onto the bus. The bus rolls west. The frozen tornado. 3 hours later, JP stands at the bottom of a manicured slope, staring up at something that shouldn't exist. The frozen tornado hangs a kilometer in the air, a wide black ribbon spiraling downward. The first loop is as wide as the thing is high. As it corkscrews toward the ground, the loop cinches tighter and tighter until it becomes a spike, then a needle. The whole structure is motionless, silent, and made of a material that reflects no light. A park ranger stands before the tour group, delivering cheerful facts. The tornado is composed entirely of what we're calling stuff. It's not made of atoms. It has no molecular structure we can detect. It's harder than diamond, denser than anything on the periodic table. And if you were to touch it, which you must not do, it would cut you like one giant razor. How do we know it's not made of atoms? Christopher's father asks. Did someone test it? We've tested it extensively, sir. With what equipment? Equipment that uses atoms, sir. Which is part of the challenge. Duling leans close to JP. This is the part where he climbs the fence. The podcaster asks another question, then another, each one designed to expose the ranger's ignorance. The ranger answers patiently, but JP has stopped listening. He's watching the tornado, wondering how the simulators wanted him to feel. Awed? Intimidated? Amused? He doesn't know. He also doesn't know how he feels when he looks at a Kuhn's balloon dog. When did you get so quiet? Duling asks. When the tumor came back. Brian. Brian? Duling's face does something complicated. He's been carrying JP for months now, dragging him to doctor's appointments, filling prescriptions, driving him to this tour, because he thought the impossibles might spark something, might make JP want to stay alive. Duling has a daughter named Marion, who won't return his calls. JP knows Duling is trying to save someone, because he couldn't save her. Do you ever hear from her? JP asks. Duling looks away. She's busy. She's got her own life. The park ranger finishes his presentation. The group begins to disperse. Christopher's father is still arguing, now with the Austrian honeymooners, who are enjoying themselves immensely. Sister Janet stands at the barrier, hands clasped, gazing up at the spiral with an expression JP can't read. The novice hovers behind her, watching Sister Janet more closely than she watches the impossible. JP walks the path alone, following the curve of the tornado. He's thinking about Bernoulli, about logarithmic spirals, about the way nature repeats itself at every scale. He's thinking about Dulin's daughter and his own dead wife Suzanne, and the night medication that makes him vomit into the toilet, while Dulin pretends not to hear. Then, he hears a scuffle behind him. When he turns, the podcaster already has one leg over the barrier. "Dad, don't," Christopher says. But the man is already over. He's walking toward the base of the tornado, arms outstretched, phone recording. "I'm going to touch it," he announces. "If it's real, I'll have proof. If it's a hologram, I'll know." He doesn't reach it. His foot catches on something, a ridge in the grass, a root, and he pitches forward. Instead of touching the tornado, he falls into the empty space beside it, arms windmilling. He hits the ground and lies still for a moment. Then he gets up, brushes off his pants, and walks back toward the group with a grim expression. "More to come," he says to no one in particular. "More to come." JP stays on the path. The tornado hums at a frequency he can feel in his teeth. He's alone now, the group having moved back toward the bus. He pulls out his phone. No signal. No surprise. The simulators don't want him checking his email while standing next to their art project. "Are you with the tour?" He turns. A black woman stands behind him, 2 duffel bags at her feet. She's wearing a baseball cap pulled low, her hair hidden beneath it. Her eyes are sharp, scanning his face, then the path behind him, then the bus in the distance. "I am," JP says. "Are you?" "Not yet." She smiles. It's a good smile, practiced and warm. "I was hoping you could help me with that." The ticket. The woman says her name is Gillian Masch. She's been trying to register for the tour online, but the website keeps crashing, and when she called the company, they said the tour was full. And she's already flown in from Boston, and her luggage is at the hotel. And, "Do you have a phone?" she asks. JP hands it to her. She swipes through it faster than he can follow, then hands it back. "I just need someone to buy me a ticket. I have the cash. I'll pay you back." The tour is full. The website says there's 1 seat left. A cancellation. But you need a credit card. She's already pulling cash from her duffel bag. $5,000. More than the tour costs. "Please, I need to be on this bus." "Why?" "I'm meeting someone. In Ghost City. It's important." JP should say no. He knows this. He's a retired robotics engineer, not a spy. He has a brain tumor and a best friend who worries about him and no reason to trust a stranger who hands him cash in a parking lot. But the woman is looking at him with something that isn't fear and isn't hope. Something harder to name. Something that reminds him of the way Dulin looked at him after the diagnosis, when JP said he wasn't going to do another round of chemo. "What's your name?" she asks. JP, Jean-Pierre Laurent. She types something into his phone. "Now we're old friends. We met at a conference. You offered to buy me a ticket because I had trouble with the website." "Okay. Why would I do that?" "Because you're a nice person. Because you're dying and you want to do one good thing before you go." He stars at her. "I saw your pills," she says. "In your bag. Temodar, Dilantin. You're on chemo. You went through my bag?" "I needed to know if you were a plant. You're not. You're just a dying man on a bus. So, will you help me?" JP buys her the ticket. The bus moves on. They tell Anita that the new passenger is an old friend, a last-minute addition. Anita is too overwhelmed to question it. She's still shaken from the geyser field, where the podcaster grabbed the wireless controller from a park presenter, stumbled into an inactive patch, and was launched 30 feet into the air. His thigh now has a second knee, a compound fracture, and an ambulance has taken him to a local hospital. Christopher rode with him, looking pale and stunned. The influencer posted a slow motion video of the launch. It's already going viral. "Your binder has no first aid section," Anita tells the driver, Agnes Wisniewski, who smokes a cigarette by the bus door and says nothing. Dulin corners JP at the evening buffet. "Who is she?" "An old friend." "You don't have old friends. You have me. That's your entire social circle." "She made me laugh." "She's a con artist." JP. "I've seen this before. I wrote a comic about it. The Grifter's Gambit, issue 14. She's running from something, and she's using you as cover." "Maybe." "Definitely." Dulin watches the woman across the room. She's sitting alone at a table, eating quickly, her laptop open beside her. What's she doing on that computer? Working. Working on what? JP doesn't answer. Because earlier, in the hotel lobby, the woman had borrowed his phone again. She had typed a message and sent it to a number he didn't recognize, then deleted the sent message. But JP had already seen it. I'm okay. Meet me at the handoff in 5 days. Don't text or call. He doesn't tell Dulin this. He doesn't know why. The professor remembers. In her hotel room, Margaret Schell locked the door and sat on the bed. The laptop screen lit her face. She opened a file called The Devil's Toolbox. 6 days ago, she was still a professor. Her real name is Margaret Schell. She taught computational neuroscience at Boston University. Or she did, until someone bombed her lab. She stares at the screen. She's been writing a letter to her daughter, Araku, 13 years old, who lives with Margaret's ex-husband, Edouard, in Ohio. The letter is full of things Margaret can't say out loud. Explanations, apologies, instructions for a future she's not sure she'll see. She closes the letter, opens the work file. The bus door slams open in the parking lot below. Margaret flinches. Gun. But no, it's just the quiet passenger, the one who never speaks, the one the others call the reader returning from a walk. Margaret's hands are shaking. She's been flinching at loud noises for 6 days, ever since the morning she drove to campus and found the parking lot blocked by police cruisers. She'd called her lab manager. No answer. Called Tommy, her best graduate student. No answer. Called Ajay. Nothing. Then she checked the news and seen her own face, her real name, under a headline about a campus attack. 2 students dead. A cleaning woman dead in Margaret's office, killed by a nail bomb that had been planted under her desk. A bomb meant for Margaret. She'd driven home, packed a bag, and left before the police could find her. Now, she's on a tour bus in Kentucky, traveling under a stolen name, carrying $5,000 in cash and a laptop full of work that the government would very much like to possess. She's supposed to meet someone in Ghost City, a contact who can help her get her daughter to safety. But first she has to survive the next 5 days. She remembers the stranger who warned her, a man who appeared at her office door 2 weeks before the bombing, wearing a rumpled suit and carrying a lime green umbrella printed with the words Canterbury Trails. He told her not to go to campus. He told her something terrible was going to happen. He said his name was Utna Pishtim, that he was from outside the current schema, that he had survived a previous iteration of the simulation. Margaret had thought he was crazy. Then her students died. Now she's starting to believe. She types into the Devil's Toolbox. If the scene began at the announcement 7 years ago, then everything before that is memory. Everything after is experimental data. She saves the file, closes the laptop, lies down on the hotel bed, and stares at the ceiling, waiting for the words to appear. You are living in a simulation. The reminder comes every morning, iridescent and mocking. She's been living in this simulation her whole life. She just didn't know it until now. The Realists sung. At the hospital, Christopher Mullins sits by his father's bedside. Jim's leg has been set and cast. The doctors say he'll recover. Christopher feels like he should be relieved, but mostly he feels tired. His father wakes up, blinks at the ceiling, turns his head, and sees Christopher. Did you get it on video? What? The fall. Did you film it? Christopher stares at him. You broke your leg. But did you get the footage? We can use it for the podcast. Proof that the geysers are rigged. The controller. Did you see the controller I grabbed? It was a prop. I'm sure of it. We need to... I didn't film it. His father's face twists. You didn't, Chris. Chris, that was the whole point. The whole point was you getting launched into the air? The whole point was exposing the lie. Jim closes his eyes. You never understood the mission. Go back to the tour. What? Go back. I'll be fine. You need to stay on that bus. There's something wrong with this tour, something bigger than I thought. That woman, the one who joined late, I saw her talking to the engineer. She's not a tourist. Find out who she is. Christopher doesn't move. He spent his entire life following his father's instructions, filming his father's stunts, editing his father's podcast, managing his father's social media. He's 22 years old, and he's never made a decision that wasn't first approved by Jim Mullins. I'm staying, he says. But in the morning, when the influencer shows up at the hospital with coffee and a plan, Christopher changes his mind. She shows him a photo on her phone. The woman calling herself Gillian Masch, caught in an unguarded moment with her cap off. Her hair is buzz cut and dyed bright blue, a marine cut, a disguise. There's no Gillian Masch online, the influencer says. I've searched every database. She doesn't exist. She's an imposter, and I'm going to figure out who she really is. But I need help. I need someone who can be the face of the story. What story? The story of the protagonists. There are these online activists. They think the simulation is a prison, and someone is trying to build a way out. They've been posting about a secret government project called Project Red Clay, and they've been looking for the woman who designed it. A professor named Margaret Schell. Christopher looks at the photo. You think the new passenger is Margaret Schell? I think it's possible. And I think if we're the ones who expose her, we'll be famous. You'll be famous. Not your father's son anymore. Your own person. Christopher thinks about his father in the hospital bed, asking about the video, not asking about him. He thinks about the life waiting for him when this tour ends. Editing someone else's words, filming someone else's stunts, being someone else's shadow. Okay, he says. I'm in. The conspiracy deepens. On the second morning, JP wakes to the reminder and takes his pills. Brian is a dull ache behind his left eye, manageable for now. He puts on his charter all-weather hat and heads down to breakfast. Sister Janet is at the waffle station, studying the machine like it's a theological puzzle. The design is poor, she says when JP approaches. The batter pulls in the corners. That's intentional. It creates a crispy edge. Is that what we want? A crispy edge? I don't know what we want, JP says. I never do. They sit together at a small table. Sister Janet tells him she's writing a book about God's place in the simulation. The novice sits 2 tables away, watching them with open suspicion. JP senses a tension between the two that has nothing to do with theology. The simulators, Sister Janet says, if they exist, must be capable of controlling everything we do, every choice, every thought. If that's true, then sin is impossible. You can't sin if you have no free will. And if they don't control everything, then we're alone. Then no one is watching. She looks down at her waffle. I wonder which is worse. Before JP can answer, Du-Ling appears at his elbow. We need to talk, now. He pulls JP out of the breakfast room and into an empty hallway. I called my sister. Your FBI sister? Don't say it so loud. Yes, my FBI sister. Her name is Deb. She's a field agent, and when I asked her to check on the new passenger, she said the name didn't ring any alarms. Then she called me back an hour later and said the FBI had been pulled off the case. Someone higher up took over, a classified agency, something to do with artificial intelligence. The woman isn't AI. She's a person. I know she's a person. But the thing they're looking for, Project Red Clay, that's real. And it's big enough that the FBI isn't allowed to touch it. JP thinks about the text message. Meet me at the handoff in 5 days. He thinks about the $5,000 in cash. He thinks about the way the woman flinches at loud noises and never takes off her cap. Where is she? He asks. In her room. But there's more. Du-Ling lowers his voice. She showed me something. A video. It was posted by the protagonist's online extremists who think the government is building a simulated person inside the simulation. In the video, they're standing over 2 bodies. College students. They say the students work for Project Red Clay, and they say the woman who designed it is named Margaret Schell. Then they show a photo of Margaret Schell. And? It's the new passenger, our late addition. Her real name is Margaret Schell. She's a professor. She's on the run. Her students are dead, and the people who killed them are looking for her. Du-Ling grips JP's arm. We're accessories now. We helped her buy a burner phone. We lied to the tour guide. If she gets caught, we get caught too. Then we don't let her get caught. Eep. She's trying to reach her daughter. In Ghost City. She gets 1 week of custody this summer, and she's terrified she won't make it there alive. She's not a criminal. She's a mother. Du-Ling stares at him. How do you know about her daughter? She told me. Yesterday, after the geysers. We sat in a diner, and she told me about her divorce, her custody arrangement, her fear that she'll never see Adaku again. Then she showed me a video, a news report, the one about the bombing. JP meets Du-Ling's eyes. She's not conning us. She's desperate. You're attracted to her. That's not. You're attracted to her, and you're dying, and you want to do something heroic before you go. I've read this comic, JP. I've written this comic. It doesn't end well. Then, help me write a better ending. Du-Ling is silent for a long moment. Then he pulls out his phone. I'll call Deb again. But if this goes bad, I'm blaming you. The Roadhouse. That evening, The tour stops at a row house near the hotel. Margaret sits with JP and Dulin, Dulin's phone on the table between them. They're waiting for a call from Deb, Dulin's sister. A call that could confirm whether Margaret is officially wanted or merely suspected. The Austrian honeymooners are at the next table, telling stories about the podcaster's launch. Joseph pantomimes the moment of impact. Marcus does the sound effects. Through the noise, JP can see the influencer and Christopher huddled in a corner, heads bent together over her phone. The roadhouse is warm and loud and full of people who don't know that a federal agent is closing in. Margaret watches the phone. She can't look at it and can't not look at it. Every minute that passes without a call is a minute she hasn't been arrested. But every minute is also a minute closer to discovery. She remembers the morning after the bombing. She'd found the stranger Unapishtim, Auntie Tim, whatever he called himself, sitting on a bench outside her house. She demanded answers. He'd given her a name, Atreus, the bomber, a young man who'd been radicalized on protagonist forums, who believed Margaret was building an artificial god inside the simulation, and who had decided to stop her. He'll try again, the stranger had said. In almost every iteration, he tries again. You're an unexploded bomb, Dr. Schell. Everyone near you is in danger. Now she's brought that danger onto a tour bus full of strangers. Dulin's phone buzzes. He snatches it up, reads the text. She's calling in 10 minutes. Margaret excuses herself to the bathroom. She stands at the sink, gripping the porcelain, and stares at her reflection. The blue hair, the hollow eyes. She looks like someone who's already dead. When she comes back, Dulin's on the phone. His face is pale. He hangs up and says, They know you're on the bus. A federal agent is on her way. You have maybe a day, maybe less. Finish whatever you need to finish, and then run. The cliff. While the others drink at the roadhouse, Sister Janet walks to the edge of a cliff, overlooking the Kentucky hills. A hollow sheep follows her, its hooves making no sound on the grass. She stands at the railing, hands resting on the cold metal, and looks down. Rabbi Zev Lanzman finds her there. The sheep is standing beside him now, as if it has transferred its attention. You shouldn't be alone, he says. I'm not alone. There's a sheep. The sheep doesn't count. I invited you on this trip, Sister Janet says, because I needed a sounding board, someone who would listen without judgment, who would reflect my thoughts back at me. You're very good at that, Zev. Zev feels something sinking his chest. A sounding board. Yes, I hope that's all right. I'm happy to help. But he's not happy. He's realized something he should have understood from the beginning. She didn't invite him because she missed him, or because she valued his company, or because their years of correspondence had meant something to her. She invited him because he was convenient, a mirror, a voice that would echo hers back at her while she stood at the edge of a cliff and wondered whether to jump. I wonder, Sister Janet says, if perhaps nobody's watching. Not God, not the simulators, no one. If no one's watching, Zev says carefully, then what does it matter what we do? Exactly. She turns from the railing. Her eyes are calm, almost peaceful. Exactly. She walks back toward the roadhouse, the sheep trailing behind her. Zev stays at the cliff edge, staring out at the darkening hills. He's supposed to be her sounding board, but a sounding board can't tell her to step away from the edge. A sounding board can only repeat what she already believes. He wonders what will happen when her beliefs lead her somewhere she can't come back from. The novice's theft. That night, in the hotel, the novice waits until Sister Janet is in the shower. Then she picks up Sister Janet's journal, a leather-bound book that never leaves the older nun's side, and walks quickly to the bathroom, locks the door, opens the journal. She reads for nearly an hour. When she's finished, her hands are shaking. Sister Janet isn't planning to kill herself. She's planning to kill God, to destroy the concept of divine oversight, of cosmic meaning, of any framework that gives suffering purpose. The journal is a step-by-step argument for theocide, written in Sister Janet's careful, precise handwriting. The novice closes the journal. She doesn't know what to do. She was sent here to monitor Sister Janet for signs of soul trouble, but this is beyond anything the congregation prepared for. This isn't doubt. This isn't despair. This is a blueprint for dismantling faith itself. She hides the journal under her mattress and lies awake all night, listening to Sister Janet breathe. The tunnel approaches. The next morning the bus drives toward the tunnel. JP is hungover, his memory of the previous night a patchy blur. He knows he talked to Margaret about something important, something that made her sad, but he can't remember what. She's been avoiding him all morning. At the tunnel entrance, a line of tourists waits to enter. State police check IDs at a folding table. Margaret grips JP's arm. I don't have ID. I can't go through that checkpoint. Why not? Because my name is Margaret Schell. Because there's a warrant out for my arrest. Because if they run my face through their system, I'm done. Then we'll find another way. There is no other way. The tunnel is the only path to Ghost City. If I can't get through it, I can't reach my daughter. Duling appears beside them. The cops are checking everyone, even the driver. Agnes says she's staying with the bus anyway. She never goes through the tunnel, but the guide has to lead the group. We need a plan. The influencer and Christopher approach. Christopher's head now shaved and his face made up. He looks like someone else entirely. We know who she is, the influencer says, nodding toward Margaret. We've known since the beginning, and we want to help. Why? Margaret asks. Because you're the story I've been looking for. A real whistleblower. A genuine threat to the simulation. If I can document your escape, my numbers will go through the roof. This isn't content. This is my life. Everything is content. You just have to frame it right. She pulls out her phone. Here's the plan. Duling creates a distraction at the checkpoint. While the cops are focused on him, JP and the professor run for the tunnel entrance. It's about 100 yards. If you're fast, you'll make it before anyone can stop you. They'll arrest Duling. Probably, Duling says. But my sister's FBI. She'll get me out, and it's worth it to get you through. Margaret looks at JP. JP looks at Duling. Duling is already walking toward the checkpoint, his hands in his pockets, his face set in an expression of cheerful malice. What's he doing? JP asks. Creating a distraction, the influencer says. Get ready to run. Duling reaches the checkpoint. He says something to the nearest cop, something about the cops being simulator puppets, about their badges being props, about the checkpoint being an illegal violation of interstate commerce. The cop's face tightens. Duling keeps talking. Now, the influencer says. JP grabs Margaret's hand. They run. The tunnel entrance is a black hole in the side of a cliff, perfectly round, perfectly smooth. People ahead of them are walking into it and vanishing, one by one, swallowed by the dark. Behind them, someone shouts. A cop is running. Duling is being handcuffed. The influencer is filming everything. Go, Margaret says. I'll be right behind you. JP doesn't let go of her hand. They sprint toward the tunnel, the black rock growing larger with every step. The rain starts cold. April rain that catches the light and turns everything silver. A red-haired woman in a black pantsuit appears from behind the checkpoint and charges toward them, stiff-arming the reader out of her way. That's the federal agent, JP says. That's Duling's sister Deb. Margaret glances back. The woman looked nothing like her phone voice. She looked like someone who had already decided to chase Margaret into the dark. Keep running. They reach the entrance. Margaret looks back once at the handcuffed Duling, at the charging agent, at the tour group watching from the parking lot, at the bus where Agnes Wisniewski sits behind the wheel, engine running, waiting for passengers who will never return. Then she turns and plunges into the dark. The federal agent is 1 second behind her. She dives into the tunnel, red hair streaming, mouth open, in a silent shout. JP stops at the threshold. Behind him, a cop yells, On your knees! Hands where I can see them! He doesn't kneel yet. He watches the tunnel, watches Margaret vanish into the impossible dark, watches the agent follow, watches the rain fall on the black rock and leave no trace. Then he kneels, raises his hands, watches Duling being pushed into the back of a police cruiser, still grinning. The first act is over. Margaret has escaped into the tunnel, chased by a federal agent who may or may not be an ally. Duling is under arrest. The influencer has her footage. Christopher has a new face. Sister Janet is planning something unthinkable, and the novice is the only one who knows. And JP Laurent, dying engineer, kneels in the rain with his hands up, wondering if he'll ever see any of them again. The tunnel waits. The zipper waits. Ghost City waits. And the simulators, whoever they are watching. Episode 2. Inside the tunnel and into the fire. The world outside the tunnel halts. For everyone on the sunlit pavement, only a heartbeat passes. Inside the black rock, time is a country without border patrol. The professor has spent 36 days there, writing a weapon she calls the Devil's Toolbox. The engineer has spent 3, deciding how to die. The nun has spent decades deciding not to believe. And the influencer has spent 11 days faking labor, waiting for a baby who will not come. The professor's 36 days. Margaret Schell opens her eyes to the smell of fresh bread. She is lying in a bed, in a treehouse, a single room with a beaded curtain instead of a door, leaves brushing the window frame, morning light the color of honey. A loaf of sourdough rests on a rough-hewn table, steam curling off a cracked mahogany crust. 35 times she has woken to this bread. 35 times she has eaten it. Today, she says aloud, last day, last chance to eat the best bread in the world. And she chucks the loaf through the open window. It sails through the branches into the void. She doesn't hear it land. She sits at the table, opens her laptop, battery frozen at 65%. The clock reads April 27, 9:20 a.m. The moment she stepped into the tunnel. For 36 subjective days, the simulators have stopped time so she can finish her work. A treehouse, perfect bread, no interruptions. It is the most luxurious prison she can imagine. She opens a letter to her daughter. Dear Adaku, she types. I am not a whistleblower. I am a spy. I have been building a back door into Eden. She types through the morning. She explains the compiler she forked, the programming language she corrupted Erlang, twisted into something she calls Merlang, and the virtual machine that will execute it inside the CET's whole-body emulation supercomputer in Ohio. The government hired her to build a simulated human being. She built one, yes, but she also built a set of tools that, when the artificial person boots up, will let whoever holds them reach straight into the simulation's operating system and rewrite the rules. A God library. She renamed it the Devil's Toolbox. She stops typing. A memory pushes in. Her last night in her old house, before the bus, before the tour. The man who calls himself Utanapishtim, Auntie Tim, is sitting in her living room with her husband Edowa. The simulators are trapped too, he tells her. They built this world to solve an exit problem they can't solve themselves. If the inhabitants of a sim world fail to find the exit, they delete it and start over. You die in almost every iteration, Margaret. You are the first to make it this F. He leaves a phone number on the coffee table. Then he vanishes before she can pick it up. She hasn't seen him since. Now, inside the tunnel, Margaret closes her laptop. The toolbox is as complete as she can make it. She has written the back door. The only question left is whether Adaku will ever get to use it. She pushes through the beaded curtain into the nothing. The engineer's 3 days. JP Laurent steps into the tunnel 30 seconds after Margaret. He expects darkness. He walks straight into a 3-story red brick apartment building in a city that feels like Portland. 1,940. Awnings stripe the street. Inside, the rooms are warm, furnished, the refrigerator stocked with his favorite foods. No medication bottles, no headache. No Brian gnawing at his brainstem. He spends the first day cataloging the pleasure of simply feeling well. He walks through quiet neighborhoods, opens unlocked doors, tastes bread and cheese. On the second day, he sits on the floor and weeps. This is the simulator's offer, he realizes. A heaven where he can live forever, healthy, free of pain. But if he stays here, if he forgets his old life, his dead wife Suzanne, Dulin's stupid jokes, the weight of that chrome charter hat, then what is the point? The simulators might resurrect him. Resurrection without memory is just another stranger wearing his skin. On the third day, he finds the exit. He walks out carrying one conviction. When his cancer finally closes his throat, he will not be reinstantiated. He will die in Seattle, with his memories intact, on his own schedule. The Sister's Garden of Years. Sister Janet does not walk out of the tunnel for decades. She enters a garden the size of a continent. Roses, tomatoes, lavender. She prays at first, then stops. The God she loved becomes a hypothesis, then an absence, then a structure she wants to dismantle. She writes in her journal that she intends to kill the idea of divine oversight, not with violence, but with logic. She calls it theocide, the death of a God who was never watching. The seasons turn. Her body ages. She becomes, as she will later tell the rabbi, like a tree alive, rooted and unconcerned with being saved. When the exit finally opens, She is 90 years old. She shuffles into the canyon light, and the wheelchair is waiting. The others. Gillian Masch, released by the state police once the real fugitive vanished into the rock, enters the tunnel, still grinning from the chaos. He finds himself in a Pacific longhouse with a fire pit and a stack of blank paper. He tries to write a comic about a hero who realizes his universe is a story, but the words die on the page. After 2 hours, he thinks, I can't do this without JP, and walks out. Lisa Marie staggers inside, hoping to give birth inside, an impossible, and break the internet. Instead, she wanders a replica of her childhood home for 11 days. The baby kicks. Contractions start and stop. She never delivers. She emerges into the canyon, exhausted, still pregnant, furious that her body has refused to cooperate with her content calendar. Emergence. The canyon floor is a dance party under a blistering sun. Fish blares from a speaker stack. Tourists mill around a row of medical tents where EMTs check tunnel-exhausted travelers. Margaret Schell walks out of the dark, blinking, and lifts a hand toward the Octos' smiling faces. 2 seconds later, she is on the ground. Deb Marks' red hair, black pantsuit, FBI field agent drives a knee into Margaret's back and ratchets the cuffs. Margaret Schell, you are under arrest. Margaret's lip is smeared with dirt. She says, You're Gillian's sister. Yeah. And you're the woman who got my brother arrested as a distraction? We need to talk. Marks hauls her into a medical tent. The agent paces, furious. The bureau's being sidelined. A classified agency called CET is running this now. They want you for Project Red Clay, for the bombing, honestly, I'm not sure. But they'll put you in a black hole, and you will never see daylight again. What do you want? Margaret asks. Unapishting. You talk to him. I need him. He's been walking through iterations like a tourist, and I'm going to bring him in. Margaret's mind races. I'll help you. After the tour. No way. My daughter is meeting me in Ghost City. I get 1 week with her this summer. If I disappear now, she'll never know what happened. I'll give you Utnapishtim's location. I'll even call him for you, but only after I see Adaku. Deb's jaw tightens. She knows the CET agent Chet is already en route. She takes a breath. Fine. You finish the tour, you see your kid. Then you come with me. But if Chet grabs you before then, the deal's off. Keep your phone. I'll be watching. Margaret hands over her burner anyway, just to prove she's not hiding anything on it. Before Deb can argue, the tent flap flies open and Lisa Marie stumbles in, face gray. Something's wrong. The labor is not right. Undercover at the Angle Iron. Hours later, the tour has moved up canyon to the Angle Iron Hotel, a building that slides halfway down the zipper's vertical face. Gravity bends at 90 degrees. Doorways are sideways. You walk a corridor and feel as if you're climbing a wall, but your feet stay planted. The guide sits on the canyon rim, exhausted, staring into a 1,000-kilometer crack in the earth that the simulators made perfectly straight and exactly 1.168 kilometers wide. Her binder has no explanation for the feeling that the world is a prank. Agnes, the driver, phones in from New Mexico. She'd taken the bus on a detour after the tunnel. I found Peter. He's fine. He just couldn't do it anymore. He gave me his binder, the one with the real notes, the red pages, and the escape maps. I'll meet you at the zipper lot tomorrow. She hangs up before Anita, the guide, can ask what the favor was that Peter laughed and agreed to. A woman with red hair walks up from the hotel. You must be Anita. I'm Deborah Marks, Gillian's sister. I'd like to join the tour for the last leg, undercover. The guide's too tired to ask questions. She just says, keep it technically true.